In this video, we are going to make a flip book that looks like this to take our notes in, and we'll be filling in the flip book in this video. So to make the flip book, you need 5 pieces of plain computer paper, and we are going to cut them in half longwise. It doesn't have to be perfectly in half, just try to make a nice straight cut, as straight as you can. Once I'm done that, I give myself a little tap. I can see I'm a little uneven over here, so you can always trim up your edges as you need. Okay, once you've got your 5 pieces of paper cut in half, you now are going to layer them about a centimeter apart. So each piece of paper, I'm going to stack another centimeter away from the previous one. Again, this doesn't have to be perfect. Just try to make those maybe nice and even. So once you've got all 5 down, put your finger down about right here, and we're going to fold this end over top here. So when I fold, I'm going to create that same gap here, and then give that top a nice crease. Maybe a nice tap to make all your edges even. Then to keep your flip book together, you're going to want to staple the top. 1 big staple or 2 will do the trick. Okay, so now we've made our flip book. So the next thing we're going to do is title all of our flaps, and then we'll start filling them in. So the main title here you're going to write is called Identifying Angles. Okay, that's the point of the whole flip book, is we're going to list a whole bunch of different angles, and the flip book will help you identify them. So to fill in our titles, we will be opening the flaps. So before you open, you kind of want to draw a line along that crease so that when we do open it, we can tell the difference between, we don't want to go past that line because that line is just for our title. So when we're writing stuff up here, we really don't want to go past that line. And then we can add in our title. So then for all of these flaps, we're going to have that line. Okay. So I'm going to have you pause the video at this time. I've taken the time to already draw all my lines and write in my titles. So pause the video and fill yours in now. All right, so now that you have gotten all of your titles filled in, we are actually going to start with this last tab. So if you want to open up your flip book, if you give it a nice crease, we're going to fill in that diagram of lines page. So the first thing we're going to draw is this transversal, which a transversal, we have to have 2 parallel lines. Okay, so remember, parallel lines are lines that won't ever touch if they go on and on and on forever. And then we're going to draw a diagonal line kind of cutting them. So these are called parallel lines cut by a transversal. And sometimes you'll see this little arrow here that indicates that these 2 lines are parallel. Since this line doesn't have that extra arrow, they're not parallel. That's just like a math notation you'll see sometimes, not always. And then we're going to go over some vocabulary words. So we're going to define what a transversal is, alternate, and same side. So a transversal is a line that intersects two or more lines. Okay, so that diagonal line there, that's our transversal. When I say alternate, we are going to be talking about opposite sides of the transversal line. So if this is our transversal, alternate would be one on this side and one on this side, opposite sides. Same side is then same sides of the transversal. And then a couple other things kind of that go with our diagram here. Whenever I say interior, we're talking about between the parallel lines here. So everything kind of in this space here is interior. And then we also have our exterior, which is then on the outside of those parallel lines. Okay. So if you ever don't know what I mean when I'm talking about a transversal, alternate, same side, interior, exterior, you can kind of flip to this back page and use our diagram here. All right, so then we are going to jump to our vertical angles page. So go ahead and flip that up. Again, maybe give that a nice crease. Okay, so our diagram we're going to draw here are just two lines crossing. Okay, and lines have arrows at the end that shows that they go on and on and on forever. And I'm just going to label our angles we have in here. So this, we're just going to call this angle, angle 1, angle 2, angle 3, angle 4. Okay, so vertical angles are angles opposite each other. When two lines cross. Okay, so there's kind of a couple examples here. I would say angle 1 and angle 3. Those are considered vertical angles because they're opposite here when two lines cross. So then we have another pair of vertical angles, angle 2 and angle 4. Those make vertical angles because those are across from each other. Okay. Vertical angles are always congruent. Okay, they're always congruent, which means if I know the measure of angle 1, I also then know the measure of angle 3 because they are equal to each other. Congruent means equal. Complementary angles. I'm going to draw a picture here. So if I know the angle in here, I know that this is 90 degrees. So if I have a line kind of drawn through here, and maybe this is 30 degrees and maybe this is 60 degrees, again, that's not drawn to scale. Complementary angles are two angles that add up to 90 degrees. Okay, so I gave you an example of 30 and 60. Those both add up to 90 degrees, so they would be considered complementary angles. Okay, they don't need to be next to each other, so I could give you another set of angles. Maybe this one's 35 degrees, and then maybe I tell you that this one's 55 degrees. So 35 degrees and 55 degrees make 90 degrees, so therefore they're complementary. They do not need to be next to each other. Supplementary angles, you may or may not have heard of these, are two angles that add up to 180 degrees. So a straight line always makes 180 degrees all the way around. So if I have a straight line cut by another line, without even knowing the value of these two, I know they're going to be supplementary. Okay, so, but I could give you the angles also. So 140 degrees and 40 degrees, those are going to be supplementary. So I'm just going to make a note over here, straight lines make 180 degrees all the way around. Again, these don't have to be next to each other either. I could have just two other angles, maybe 110, maybe 70. Those are also going to be examples of supplementary angles. All right, so the rest of these, we are going to be getting into our parallel lines cut by a transversal. So on pretty much every page here, we're going to have our parallel lines, and we're going to cut it by our transversal. And then just for number purposes, so we know what angle we're talking about, I'm going to number this 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Okay, and you'll see these numbered a lot in our practice later in the unit. They're not numbered necessarily the same way every time. Like I could have gone 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Okay, so the numbers do change and kind of move around just depending on the picture. All right, so corresponding angles are the angles in matching corners. Okay, so really what I'm thinking about is when I look at this picture, I kind of see this as being 4 that are all around this first parallel line, and then I have these 4 angles that are all around this second parallel line. So if I kind of visualize a square here, angle 1 and angle 5 are in matching corners in that picture. So that makes those angle 1 and angle 5 corresponding angles. So another pair would be angle 3 and angle 7, angle 2 and angle 6, angle 4 and angle 8. Okay. And corresponding angles all have the same property, that the fact that they are always congruent. Okay, so again, if I give you the measure of angle 1, you would then also know the measure of angle 5 because they are corresponding angles, which means they are congruent. Alternate interior angles. So again, first we need our parallel lines picture cut by a transversal. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Always pause the video if you need to draw the pictures. If I'm drawing a little bit too fast, that's fine. So alternate interior angles. The pair of angles on opposite sides of the transversal and located in the interior. So there's a couple of vocab words we kind of put in our diagram of lines on that very last page in our flip book. So kind of some keywords are opposite and interior. So alternate, that's kind of what the opposite means. Interior, we should think of maybe like inside. That might help you. So alternate, opposite sides, and then inside. So 4 and 5 are alternate interior angles. So angle 4 and angle 5, because they're both inside, interior, and they're opposite the transversal. So there's one other pair in this picture, the 3 and the 6. angles are also alternate interior angles because they're opposite on the transversals and they're inside those parallel lines. These types of angles are also always congruent. Next page, go ahead and draw your transversal. So alternate exterior angles are the pair of angles on opposite sides of the transversal and on the outside of the parallel lines. Okay, so again, alternate, that's where our opposite comes from, opposite sides of the transversal. Exterior, we are talking about being outside. Okay, so outside the parallel lines would be 7, 8, 1, and 2. So opposite sides of the transversal would be then angles 1 and angle 8. They're both outside the parallel lines and they're on opposite sides of the transversal. Angle 2 and angle 7 are also alternate exterior angles. Okay, and alternate exterior angles are also always congruent. And they're always equal. Same side interior angles, pretty much just how it sounds. Let's draw our transversal. So same side interior angles, the pair of angles on one side of the transversal. And inside the parallel lines. So one side of the transversal. So 1, 2, 3, 5, 7 are all on one side, or 2, 4, 6, 8 all on one side. And then on the inside, though, of the parallel lines, right, interior, this means inside those parallel lines, those 3, 5, 4, and 6. So same side interior could be angles 3 and angles 5, or angles 4 and angles 6. Same side interior angles are always supplementary. Okay, not congruent this time. Same side interior angles are always supplementary, which we said earlier means they add up to 180 degrees. And we can kind of tell by looking at the picture here, this angle 5 and this angle 3, they don't even look the same in the picture, right? This 3 looks like an obtuse angle. This 5 looks like an acute angle. Last page in our flip book, same side exterior angles. Cut by my transversal. So same side exterior angles are the pair of angles on one side of the transversal. And outside, that's our exterior, outside the parallel lines. So outside our parallel lines, but on the same side, would be angles 1 and angles 7, or angles 2 and angles 8. Okay, these are also always supplementary. A little messy. And that completes our flip book for the unit. Feel free to make it a little more colorful, like this one, if you choose to.